Maybe you want to start freelancing or you're already going down the agency route. Either way, if you are craving doing something of your own, this is for you. Hey, what's up? My name is Audrey. I run a design agency called Mappo Studio. 2 years ago, I quit my dream job at Canva to start this design agency, and I grew it from zero to $100,000 a month in just the first year. Starting was always the hardest part, and I always get a bunch of questions on how I actually did it. So I wanted to share how I landed my first 3 clients, which was just enough for my confidence and financial stability to quit my job. Because I'm a product designer, I will share my experience of starting to freelance within product design, but whether you are doing video editing, graphic design, or marketing, this stuff is still relevant for you if your goal is to sell your expertise as services. The first thing that I wish I spent way more time on is defining who you want to work with and what would get you the most excited. The reason why this is important is because it impacts everything downstream. It impacts how you create your portfolio, it impacts your sales process, and most importantly, it really impacts how much you will enjoy freelancing. At the start, I was super loose with who we worked with, and trust me, if you are 6 months in working 12-hour days constantly, you best hope that you love the client, and you best hope that you actually like the design work you're doing for them. You also want to have a goal that genuinely motivates you. So if you are constantly trying to land clients purely for money or because the brand sounds cool, you will run out of steam very, very quickly, especially if in the first 1 to 3 months you're spending more time on outreach than design. So what does it look like to define a segment? The way that I approach this is by combining my strengths with stuff that I actually enjoy doing. For industry, we always work with design teams building a B2B software web app. This is very specific, and it is a personal bias because it's what I'm best at and it has design patterns that I'm most familiar with. In terms of team size, ideally we're working with teams that have 10 people or less. Similarly, personal bias, I love working with early stage teams because they make decisions faster, and as a designer you have way more coverage over the product instead of just a tiny sliver of a feature, which is much less fun for me. I always try to make sure there's at least one person on the team who is technical, either in design, product, or even engineering, because these people have worked in product teams before, so they tend to be much more familiar with the design process for product and won't question us on like, what is a user story, or how do we write a good brief? Finally, we really care if a business has raised venture capital in the last 12 months. I found that this generally screens for teams that already have money and a budget to spend on product design, and usually they already have a high appreciation for product design and consider it to be an important part to the success of the business. This makes your sales process so much easier because you don't have to constantly explain why the thing you do is potentially valuable for them. I spent 3 months to get to this stage, but you could skip all of that and more if you just spent 30 minutes thinking about this before you kick off. Let's talk about your portfolio. The goal here is to have at least 3 projects within the segment that you want to design for. And it doesn't have to be beautiful, but it does have to be curated. As a freelancer, don't forget that people are hiring you for expertise. So showing a range of design projects across multiple industries and different formats, super overrated because teams are looking for depth of expertise in a vertical. So if I were to hire a designer for Mappo Studio, the things that I would be looking for is 1, have they done the thing many times before? 2, do they have a design aesthetic that's aligned with the brand and the company that I'm working on? And 3, for extra points, have they worked with reputable brands or companies that I recognize or respect? That third point is something that you will just build over time as you land more and more projects, but 1 and 2, super achievable when you're just starting to freelance. So in practice, what this looks like is if you are targeting a company in consumer fintech, all the projects in your portfolio should be in consumer fintech. You want the team that you're pitching to feel like, oh wow, Audrey is the designer that we want because she has only ever worked on projects just like this. It is a much easier pitch if you consider how that person has to sell you to the rest of their team. And if you've done at least 3 projects that are very, very similar to what the company is looking to design for, people will consider you to be an expert in that category. Your portfolio doesn't have to be amazing and beautiful and perfect. It can just be a dump of all of your past Figma designs, and trust me, that is enough. To this day, Mappo Studio's portfolio is a simple Figma file with pages for each project we worked on. I usually just copy paste 5 or so flows or a couple of screens from client files into this Figma file that we use as our portfolio and send that to to people we're pitching to. This hasn't massively impacted our ability to sell, so definitely shouldn't for yours either. Obviously, having a beautiful website can really help with your portfolio, but when you're just starting out, don't let that be a blocker. If you're just starting out, you might not have the 3 projects in one segment, so I would spend time practicing by creating your own concepts within that target audience demographic. If you are targeting companies that are building fintech mobile apps for consumers, types of things that I would design are stuff that they would definitely have to do within their product. This includes like a login, sign-in flow for banking, a dashboard of your cash position, and maybe stuff like graphs to track financial history. It is totally fine if they are your own design concepts, but also do look at Dribbble and see if you can copy slightly different aesthetics so you can show range in terms of brand flexibility, so the company that you want to work with has confidence that you'll be able to emulate their brand in your designs. As a self-taught designer, I spent a lot of time designing for friends and family for free just to get a taste of what client management would be like. I took these trial runs very seriously, setting up a process from what design tracker we used, how we shared designs for feedback in Figma, and like the structure of our daily updates. This just gives you a low risk chance to experience what collaboration would look like with your clients. Last but not least is getting your name out there. Let's land the first client, and at this point it doesn't matter how much you charge. The goal is to just land that first believer. If you already have a network within the segment you're targeting, amazing. I would reach out to these guys, share your portfolio, and offer your design services for just enough that they actually value your work, but not so much that every day you're pulling your hair out, stressed about how you can deliver value to them. I would actually be quite transparent, especially if it's someone that you know that you're relatively new to freelancing and you're giving them like an initial discounted rate. For my first client, I charged $50 an hour just to get my foot in the door and get their logo and the project in my portfolio. However, if you don't have a network, here's some stuff that also worked really, really well for me. Cold emailing and DMing founders, posting in Slack and Discord communities, depending on where your audience lives. Also, an extremely underrated thing is just asking for an introduction from someone who might know the person working in the company that you want to work with. I have email templates that I've used many times that have worked for me, so I can pop that into the description box below. But general high-level concepts for cold emailing or posting stuff. 1, a catchy or bold subject title, like I want to be your product designer. I give them 1 sentence on the context of why I'm reaching out and 3 dot points on why I am the perfect designer for them. I also make my call to action like a book Calendly super easy for them so that they don't have to spend time trying to like search your LinkedIn, and it's a low friction conversion for them. When you are cold contacting, just remember that the worst thing that can happen is that they don't reply. Think about when you receive emails, you almost rarely just completely dismiss it and say, gross, I can't believe this person is sending me this email. Usually we read it and go, oh, that's awesome that they're working on something of their own. Unfortunately, it's just not for me right now. So if you know that the best thing that could happen is the person you're reaching out to says yes and potentially books a call, you would never have gotten that chance if you didn't try. The neutral case is someone actually responds and says, no, not right now. But this is actually awesome because it means that now they know of you and they recognize your brand. So if someone asks them if they know a designer, they'll think of you first. Another part that was a big portion of my sales volume about 6 months in actually came from LinkedIn posting. Obviously, this is a bit more sensitive if you have a full-time job at the moment and you don't want your boss or your manager to see your posts. But if you're currently unemployed, you have no excuses to use LinkedIn posting as a way to get initial sales velocity for your agency. The types of posts that did well for me was best practices of things like writing a brief for a designer, unique or interesting processes around client management, and my design stack and how much it costs. All of this stuff was more specific around like how I actually ran my agency, but I found things that didn't perform as well as if I was talking about like how much money we made over a specific month or how many clients we landed in a specific month. Those things actually performed really well for designers and freelancers, but not so much in terms of landing net new clients for the business. It took me 2 whole months to land my very first client and another 2 months to land a total of 3. So with a lot of consistency and a little bit of luck, you definitely can do it too. If you are interested in learning more about my agency or my product journey, I would love for you to stick around. But for now, I will see you next time. Bye!